Hi everybody, welcome back to this episode of the Compliance Coach. It's number 7 and this time we talk about leadership and in particular how to recruit leaders in the Simon Sinek style for compliance. Why is that topic so important? Because 90%, according to a Cornerstone study, of banks are struggling in retaining and hiring leaders in their function. In the words of Simon Sinek, for instance, great leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of others and those you are in charge. And we will see in this episode whether this is really the truth and how to keep leaderships in the bank. Now, we have 3 topics that we will tackle today is why soft skills are really important for compliance, in particular for leaders. 2, how to practically identify them in recruitment process. And the third one not to forget is what are the hidden treasures in CVs if you're looking on the section Hobbies, Others, etc. Stay tuned until the end of this episode to find that out. My name is Ralf Ebert. I'm the Compliance Coach, 20 years of experience in senior executive roles in the compliance function. I'm here to teach compliance for experts, but as well for beginners, thinking and impacting compliance differently. So let's get directly into the action, because you saw already in one of my last episodes that the recruitment and the HR questions are in particular in the times of digital transformation, the battle with the fintechs, very important. And moreover, when it comes to leadership functions, a colleague of mine always said, we hire for skills, we fire for attitude. I find that a little bit harsh, this sentence, but there's a truth to it. And I would like to get deeper in this video on this one, because it's about how to identify, in particular for leaders, the so-called soft skills or emotional intelligence. And why is that so important? Because these people are leading a team, so they do not influence themselves, but a whole team in what they are doing. And that is tremendously important, in particular with compliance. So I have 5 tips for you of how to find that out. We all know that a job interview is lasting only 45 minutes and the best time you get to see the candidate twice. So how to find that out? And I think with over 250 recruitments that I did, I have some kind of strategies that I would like to share with you. Number 1 is the big why in the Simon Sinek style is the job description. And it's really underestimated of how this is important in the process. Of course, we are not talking about regulatory adherence and what the scope of a compliance officer and a leader is to do. I think mainly what we need as well to put already in the job description is the positioning of the compliance within the organization from a governance and reporting perspective, meaning is it directly reporting to the CEO, to the audit committee, etc., so that the candidate has the chance to get into this one. Then as well is in particular when you are working for international groups, is there only a local responsibility, or is there an impact that is searched for on a group level or in particular topics if you're an expert in this one? I think that was always in the past of a very important element. Then of course don't forget to have the seniority of your team members mentioned, because it makes a big difference if you have a team of more senior people and hiring a junior profile as a team leader. Even when, from a leadership perspective, if you are convinced that that is the right candidate, it has an impact of the whole, let me say, hygiene of the team and how the team is operating. So my practical tip always is not only to include these kind of essentials, as I would say that, of the job descriptions, but have it read and even contributed by one of your senior team members, because ultimately this person is working directly for this team and will be the direct responsible for that. So it makes a huge difference if you have somebody who's really operationally in the job helping you drafting with this one. So that's number 1. Number 2 is not less important. It is seeking the alignment of values. What do I mean with that? Meaning we are not only compliance officers who are looking that and watching that everybody is respecting and being in adherence with the law and the compliance rules. It is really going beyond. And the question sometimes is, how do people behave if nobody is looking? How is the integrity of the team, even the compliance team, doing? How is the chief compliance officer working, even in and outside the organization? And so therefore, it's not just only about following rules, it's about doing the right thing. And how to find that out, or how to better help people to get aligned with that one, I have in essence two practical tips. Number one is write a vision and mission statement. That's really important. I've brought you up here a short example of how that could look like. Well, certainly in one of my next episodes, go a little bit more in detail to this one. But a vision and mission statement provides you and your team a clear guidance in terms of what we do, how we do it, and why we're doing this. Simon Sinek style is back. And it gives you then as well for your own deliverables or performance indicators a clear guidelines of what you expect from your team. And if your team is based on this clearly explained guidelines, then you can be sure that as well the business and other functions will operate in the same thing. And what I always love to do in this regard is asking the question as a last question in an interview, for instance, in terms of, for the candidate, what does integrity mean? And you get sometimes very funny replies to that. And my second one is in the same style. It's, what do you understand under the compliance culture within the organization and the importance to the organization? And that is normally very revealing questions, so don't forget to ask them. Number 3 is emotional intelligence. Yes, very often used. So leaders do not have only to navigate in complex regulatory landscapes. They have as well to foster what we call a compliance culture within the organization, but as well with the team that they're responsible for, and meaning they need to take as well a certain kind of an accountability. Yeah. So I think that's even more important now when we're talking about the transformation process that has been done already on compliance for the last at least 10 years, and even more important, the impact of the AI and digital transformation process, which even more needs these kind of characters and this emotional intelligence. I did a whole video on this one, why compliance culture matters. If you didn't have seen it, I will have that at the end as well presented. So my view would be here that we should prioritize candidates with high emotional intelligence. Now, high emotional intelligence is not on the paper as a skill. It's something that you find out in terms of the discussion that you're doing with the person. So how the person communicate. Is it effective? Is it a person who can inspire and build trust? Very important word in our world of compliance. And can this person inspire as well others to keep the pace, to provide new steps towards a change, etc. I think that is in particular in challenging situations where compliance officers are very much exposed, very important. So how to find that out, that's not so easy, because we need to understand that compliance officers should be as well passionate about what they're doing, and not only just doing the work, but how they're doing their work. And I think that changed always in my career, the whole kind of parameter. If you have in front of you people that are upholding the standards, regardless of the regulatory landscape, but in terms of building a better version of themselves and a better version of the compliance team every time. Now, 2 practical tips here. You find that very often in this description of what are the typical questions to be asked. And you have this kind of classical question that I really would like to stress upon here in this one, where you should ask the client, the candidate really on, can you describe a situation where you had already to navigate an interpersonal conflict with a team or an individual, and ask them about the approach that they did, and more particular in terms of what did they employ to understand it, the whole problematic about that, and to address the emotions of the individuals involved. Then you find out if somebody is just only factual driven or emotional intelligence driven, to understand what's the underpinning driver for the reaction of the team. And number 2 is what I call, in my personal career, the happiness question. And it's normally done after the interview, when the candidate thinks it's done and it's over, when you bring him or her to the elevator or outside, is then trying to get the candidate into a random chat in terms of what makes him, her happy at work and in her personal life. And I think we can find out a lot of things as well of how people are driven and how they're motivated. So number 4 is look out for candidates who have a growth mindset. Why I'm telling that? Because here again, digital transformation and the inherent change of compliance over the last 10 years is really needing leaders who have this capacity of asking, is the process that we do today the good one? Don't we need to change it, and how to change it? And bringing all the instability that comes with changing processes into the bank and into the compliance function to drive it to the end, being good in project management as well in terms of difficult, challenging moments to discuss that. But that really needs a growth mindset. And whether people are open to do so, in particular for leaders. That's really one of our main requests that we have to find out. The practical tip that I can get here out is that you should always seek to understand whether people have been already participating in these kind of change the bank projects or transformation projects, how they felt about that. What did they do to improve, and what was the outcome? And in particular, when there are sometimes these kind of deadlock situations are coming up, where it's very difficult either from a financial budget or decision point of view to get over it, of how they did it and how they drive it and how they integrate the team with this one. I think that's very important. So this is number 4, growth mindset. Number 5, and the last one, is team empowerment. It looks obvious if you are recruiting a team leader that team empowerment should be there. However, in fact and in reality, it's very often different. What you would like to avoid is having micromanagers taking over, because what you should look at is that everybody in your team, regardless of whether that team is about 3, 4 or 50 people, is that people are empowered to take decision autonomously. Not meaning that there is an anarchy for decisions for everybody, but that you set out guidelines, in particular, for instance, in the vision and mission statement, as we have discussed, in terms of how are your ethical standards in the compliance function, and what do you expect from the compliance team, and in particular, the leaders to react and decide upon that. So, and what I find out is that in particular, when dealing with business, it's very important that the team leader as well as the team members are aligned on what they're doing, because you really would like to avoid that somebody is what I sometimes call the fishing for decision, is when business with a difficult case comes to compliance member 1, tries to get it, gets a no, goes to compliance member 2, gets a no, goes back, and compliance member 3 says, why not, or even a yes. So this kind of really going around the circle you would like to avoid, and how you can avoid it is if there's team empowerment, in the sense that everybody knows what other directions to do, and that there is transparency already at a very early stage. So what I always do is I try to share as max as I can on all decisions, strategies that are in place by the organization, to help everybody to understand why we are doing this. And team decisions can be sometimes difficult, but if everybody knows why we, or in which direction we are operating, what is the journey that we are doing, then it becomes more clearly. However, it needs as well that team empowerment means that people are taking responsibility. And that is, personally speaking, what I always did with my teams in terms of bringing them up in the so-called elevator pitch situation, that whether there's a CEO or a responsible person in front of you, that whether the team leader is there or not, a decision can be formulated, the problem can be clearly stated, and a solution can be proposed. I think that is what team empowerment really means. And what does it mean is that team leaders are not only there just to enforce their leadership role, that the compliance framework is working. It's really that there is a cultivation and really a collective commitment towards the team of doing so and enhancing this attitude. Now, what I do as a practical tip is always I do the meet the team element. Of course, for courtesy reasons, you shouldn't announce that. But why I'm doing this? Because at the end, people need to work with other people. And as the compliance element is human, it is important that these people understand each other. And in terms of being very honest, I leave the room, because I think it should be not always about the responsible of managing and moderating the discussions, but giving both the candidate and the team, or certain team members, the opportunity just to discuss whatever they want. And the outcome is really good, in the sense that you get the feedback from your team members as well as from the candidate, and that gives him as well the possibility to discover who is behind the team. And I think that's part of a job journey when you do an interview, that both sides can discover what is behind the curtain, and not only one-sided. And I think team participating in this element is hugely important to understand how the team empowerment can be operated and whether the candidate is the right one. Now we're coming to the extra part, beyond the resume. Why you should have as well a look in the sections of the resume, like hobbies or others. I asked that question myself before, and why a yoga teacher or a marathon person should be of a higher value or in particular interest for recruitment. And I can tell you, it's not only because of my personal experiences, but there are two quite interesting studies that have been published both in 2014 on the topic. One comes from the Cornell University, and it was called Sport at Work. And they came to the conclusion that people who did competitive sports at the secondary school were much more successful in their careers, in particular in leadership roles. So that's number one. And the BBC did as well in 2014 published a report which were highlighting that athletes are in particular great fits when it comes to stressful positions in the finance sector. And I think what couldn't be more stressful than being a compliance officer. So next time that you have a look in the CV, you might have a look whether people are sport people or have athletes or competition background. That might be of an help. In addition, and we were talking about team empowerment under number 5 in this episode, there is a very interesting research as well done in 2014, year of research, if I might say so, by the Berkeley California University in the US, which is called the NBA Touch Study, so the National Basketball Association and the league for it. And they wanted to find out from a quantitative and qualitative basis what makes teams better than others. And the very interesting stuff that they came to is that whenever team were high-fiving themselves and fist bumps or whatsoever, they were more successful during games. And the rate of these teams to be successful was much, much higher. So the question is here, I think we are all aware that congratulating team members is of a positive impact, rather than giving a negative motivation or negative feedback. But why shouldn't we as well try in our daily function to high-five our teams to see what is the effect? Because what is good in sports should be as well good in personal elements. So Might that you think about it in terms of increasing the motivation of your team and to foster more this kind of collaborative culture within the team? High five yourself. Thank you for watching. So we have talked about the leaderships and the recruitment part for those leaders in compliance. Compliance is human in my view and will remain it. And I think what we have learned is that great leaders for compliance functions will not only need great skills when it comes to regulatory adherence, but they will need to foster a collaborative and a culture of integrity approach within the bank to bring the whole organization to the next level. And remember, in this approach, hiring the right leader is not just about ticking boxes that skill sets are fulfilled. It's about somebody who can inspire the team as well as the bank, having a growth mindset, and brings and creates a trust and a circle of security or a circle of trust within the team, and therefore enabling the team members to take the next step. That, I think, is for me in my career the most important part and the most rewarding part. And team will recognize that for yourself as well as for the team performance. So that was it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching again, for your valuable time. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and looking forward to see you here very soon. Thinking and impacting compliance differently.